guys, Professor Games here coming at you with another video. This one is more or less just a video on certain events in the game Transformers Devastation. What I want to particularly touch on is Nova Prime and the Proud Star, and just figure out what the heck exactly happened on the Proud Star and the events prior to the game's beginning with the ship commencing its cyberforming process. Let's just run down, first of all, who Nova Prime is. As his name would suggest, Nova Prime was indeed a prime, one long before Optimus and one long before the conflict between the Autobots and the Decepticons on Cybertron. Nova Prime, from what we've been able to gather from data logs in game, set out on a quest on the Proud Star to find uninhabited or dead planets and cyberform them. Basically create them into a new Cybertron, both physically and as an interplanetary society. Proudstar did this with three major components. First being the massive swarm of Insecticons that would ingest any and all organic or non-living or inorganic matter and turn them into Cybertron's elemental metals. The second being the plasma core that would power both the ship and the many Terraclaws that would be used during the construction sequence in both the terraforming process and the construction of inhabitable Cybertronian cities. And finally, the Proud Star's supercomputer, the Taxis. It contained the sum total of Cybertronian societal culture and the basis on how Cybertronian cities are formed using the colonnade of Cybertron. The Taxis is basically the central brain of the entire process, directs the power for the Terraclaws, and also is the main function of the Insecticons' hive mind. Now, Nova Prime, along with many of his crewmates, including the scientist Jaxus, set out to find uninhabitable, like I said, find uninhabitable planets and then turn them into new, in some cases smaller, Cybertrons. And if we go through some of the files that can be found in game, here's one on the Proud Star. Here it is, a data log by Jaxus that explains how basically all went well. It was, again, these were planets that were uninhabitable by any form of life, organic or mechanical. But then there is also Kranix. Now, Kranix was, I guess you could say he was one of the whistleblowers. He started noticing that things started going very wrong. And it was when as Kranix described, or hang on, these are, I really should script these a lot better, guys, I'm sorry. But whereas Jaxus, slowly began just furthering, his scientific endeavors and a lot of his research, he began, using many of the crewmates that weren't so keen on volunteering for some of his questionable experiments. And, but then they visited this one planet that already looked a lot like Cybertron. But it was way different. From what they were able to tell, there were no other inhabitants on the planet. And as Optimus explained near the end of, I forget which chapter, but basically Optimus explains that he's able to tell through the Matrix, Nova Prime came in contact with something that drove him insane. And what was once a noble quest to bring life to the galaxy became a just destructive crusade to just destroy every planet, living or non-living, and turn it into a Cybertron. Kranix was the first to notice this, and he was the only one to not get quote-unquote infested by whatever the Proud Star encountered. As Teletran 1 explains that, eventually things got so bad on the Proud Star between Jaxus's questionable experimentations on his crewmates and Nova Prime's sudden, change of heart, or spark in his case, of just cyberforming the first planet and noticeably inhabitable planets that he finds. The crew basically starts going into chaos. People start, bots start just fighting all across this massive ship. Things start getting very much damaged, and a lot of, as we saw, many of them started weaponizing a lot of the hover transports that were used to get across the ship. Kranix basically just saw this whole thing going to basically their entire journey, their entire quest just started going to absolute. And Kranix decided he needed to stop this before, they cause serious damage. So he reprogrammed the Ferotaxis that the next time that that they were to commence any of the cyberforming process, the Proud Star would immediately begin to head to immediately dive into a crash course with the next planet they saw. That planet being Earth. Kranix notes how it was that the planet was unusual compared to any other planet such as Cybertron, and decides before the ship would crash, he would take one of the escape ships and head back to one of the other planets that they cyberformed before running into that mysterious Cybertron-like planet. It's unknown if Kranix really did make it out, but we know for sure that, and especially considering we didn't see a lot of other Cybertronians other than the Insecticons and the Decepticon and a lot of the Decepticon soldiers, it's safe to say that all but seemingly Nova Prime and possibly Jaxus survived the crash, with the ending scene with Nova Prime being in one of the stasis pods. Now that we've gotten the basics out of the way, let's just run down who or what exactly corrupted Nova Prime and, drove him this insane. Now, popular speculation, and quite probable speculation, is Unicron. For those of you guys who don't know, Unicron was, Unicron, at least in the Generation 1 series, was transformed into an actual planet, or, dwarf planet, planetoid, whatever you guys want to call it. I'm not an astronomer. I don't know these terms. I'm just going to call him a planet. One that eats other planets. This is the new drinking game. Every time I say planet, take a shot. A lot of you will probably would be just absolutely shite-faced before I even got to my next point. But anyway, let me just run this down. We know we know that, from what we can tell, Unicron is basically the Cybertronian god of destruction, death, and chaos, and despises his brother Primus with a passion after being defeated. I'm going into a little bit of the aligned continuity here. With after the 13 Primes defeated Unicron and casted him away, it could be that, like, you know, Unicron has just been drifting throughout the universe, searching and destroying his way back to Cybertron, and trying to find his brother to finish what he started, now that the 13 are gone. Now, with Nova, he could have... Now, the galaxy is pretty darn huge. The Milky Way. I don't know if it's ever been confirmed if Cybertron is in the Milky Way or if it's in another galaxy. The technicalities. Anyway, so it could be possible that when Unicron detected a Cybertronian ship, he knew that these were possibly spawns of the beings Primus created, and decided what better irony than to use the very beings which his brother created to destroy much more life across the universe, thus corrupting Nova Prime, quite possibly with Dark Energon. However, it seems that not everyone on the ship was infected, like Nova and many others. What could have happened is that whereas many of the crew members left the ship to examine the planet, many did stay to maintain the ship in order to ready any needed cyberforming processes. And once energy, possibly Dark Energon, could be what caused, as Optimus described, caused the Matrix to flicker off and then back on. The Matrix basically detected that taint of Unicron's work. But then we get to the question of what exactly reactivated the Proud Star's cyberforming protocols. Well, the thing is, we don't know what particular era in prehistory that the Proud Star crashed, but it was definitely before, from what I can indicate, before before the eventual exodus of Cybertron on the Ark from the Autobots, with the Decepticons pursuing in their own ship the Nemesis. And if I had to hazard a guess at what particular era, it's definitely anywhere that's not the Precambrian, pre-Cambrian. Because Kranix described there being unusual organic life. But if we just go back to his info logs, subperforming protocols will Teletran Alpha's operating. He programmed it in Teletran Alpha's operating system. My bad. And okay, back to and his planet into his Lithone. Okay, there's nothing about... here it is. Alright. Plant life and what appears to be some kind of intelligent life. Okay, so as Kranix explained there was plant life and what appeared to be organic creature, organic intelligent life. So if I had to hazard a guess of what particular era, if I'm going based off of the fossil records, was when, when soils had already formed, and, the first, land animals started arising. This was likely, more than likely, billions of years ago in Earth's geologic history. I'm assuming we all believe that the Earth is billions of years old. I'm just stupid thing to say, but anyway. So yeah, it was definitely Precambrian. I mean, not Precambrian, but definitely way before, even before the dinosaurs. So right there, it gives us a rough estimation. That gives quite a time gap for if this is going off of G1 and and the Autobots landing 4 million years before Mount St. Helen's eruption in 1984. So yeah, that gives quite a time gap. So what exactly reactivated the Proud Star? I mean, 4 billion years is still a lot of time for, tectonic shifts, earthquakes, and a whole manner of woken the that could have reactivated the Proud Star. Well, if the ship, depending on how much damage the ship took after the crash landing, it could have been that Teltran Alpha prioritized ship internal repairs and, a head count and making sure how many Cybertronians survived the crash. It could have just been on standby mode for a long, long time. But then there's also the point that Megatron seemed to have known that there was something beneath the city where the events of this game take place, on the count that that plasma energy was detected, and upon arriving, they saw non-sentient Insecticons. One possibility is that the plasma core eventually started producing more energy that could have been detectable from far, far underground. Because, likely after billions of years, the Proud Star would have been buried under many, many rock layers and sediment layers. And once the Proud Star's systems came back online and the plasma core started pumping out some energy, it might have been detected by the Decepticon scanners. As to how exactly it reactivated, that has not yet been completely revealed. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this video. This was more or less just I guess sort of a podcast-esque video. I'm sorry if there wasn't really much to exactly watch, but this was more or less something I made for you guys to listen to. I wish I had some visuals to go by with it. I really gotta learn to start editing, is what I gotta say. I just gotta stop being so lazy and just using Twitch and then exporting what I make onto YouTube. But anyway, let me know what you guys think down below, and just let me know, what do you think reactivated the Proud Star, and could there have been more of Nova's crew that could have survived, that could have been in some of those pods? I just want to say thank you all so much for being patient with me. A lot of excuses of why oh hell, goddamn lag.